can't afford to ignore these people. Hey, I am Chuck the bureaucrat, and I want you to imagine something. Say it's 2 a.m. and you, your wife, the kids, you're all sleeping soundly, and suddenly this loud beeping wakes you up. You're groggy, you got a headache, your wife doesn't wake up, and you don't want to get out of bed. But then it dawns on you that incessant beeping is the carbon monoxide detector. And now you got a choice. Do you just take the batteries out of the carbon monoxide detector and go back to bed? I mean, it's probably nothing. Or do you call the fire department? They come out, they take everybody out of the house, they test blood oxygen levels, they look for CO2 leaks on your appliances, and then you know whether you have a problem or not. Well, it turns out that in the Pentagon, there's a particular type of person, usually an action officer, who functions a lot like a carbon monoxide detector. There's some sort of organizational ill, typically some kind of uncontrolled spending that they constantly pay attention to. And whenever they detect that something bad is happening, well, they raise the alarm, usually noisily. And just like a real carbon monoxide detector, when that irritating noise starts coming out at an inconvenient time, there's a certain type of executive or director who wants to just take the batteries out and ignore them. Don't. You want to resist the totally understandable urge to ignore these warnings. First of all, the people who play this role are usually your grumpy old man or your little old ladies in tennis shoes. They're the kind of people who have been around for a while, and they've seen the kinds of situations which cause real problems. So when they sound the alarm, you should take the time to figure out why. Sometimes you realize that they're right, and you avoid a serious problem. Other times they're right, but you move forward on your original plans and you use their warning as a way to avoid real danger. An example of this was when a major wanted to spend $15,000 in TDY money so he could go to a course in April that was being offered in May at the installation where he was stationed. That set some bells off. But the rest of the story was that major had to be in Finland for a special assignment by the 1st of June, and if he went to the May course, he wouldn't arrive in time. In the end, I wrote a ghost note for my GO approving the TDY, and we specifically included a phrase that this was an extraordinary case and the expenditure was in the Army's interest to preserve a pool of educationally qualified junior officers. Now, there can be some problems with your carbon monoxide detectors. Probably the most obvious is that they can just be wrong. And that's another reason to always check things out. You want good warnings. So if you have an action officer who's giving you bad warnings, you want to train them so that they can detect real danger. The other thing about dealing with these carbon monoxide detector type people is that when you side against them, it's important that you let them know that it's not because they're wrong. It's because of the situation, like the example with the major. Two final considerations for dealing with the carbon monoxide detector type person are these. First, they tend to be single issue, and you can't really assign their focus. It's kind of like you can't get a carbon monoxide detector to function as a smoke detector just by telling it to. The real issue here is that their single issue can be too narrow for your needs. If they overlook some real organizational risk because they're too focused on their narrow issue, then they can leave you in the lurch. The second issue is really for 06 directors who are uncomfortable working so close to so many general officers. When an AO triggers this kind of alarm, it flares up to the executive level very quickly. And the general officer, they're likely to have an emotionally charged response. And what's more, these carbon monoxide detectors, particularly the little old ladies in tennis shoes, they're not really intimidated by upset general officers. They have held the hands of a general officer who was stress vomiting over congressional testimony. So If it takes standing up to a temper tantrum to avoid a serious risk, they're willing to do it. In the end, these folks have your best interest at heart. They want you, your family, and the organization to stay happy, healthy, and well-rested. And now, if you want to meet another player who can be an absolutely fantastic ally if used properly, watch this video.